At the end of the day, the reason we spend all kinds of time and money inputting data into accounting software such as Xero is because of what we are able to get out of the software. For some people, it might be just so that they can file a tax return. Hopefully, in more cases, it's so that you can use that information to properly analyze your business and make important decisions based on that information. For that reason, the reporting area of any accounting software is critically important to understand how to use and what it can tell you. We're going to take a look now at what Xero has to offer in this area specifically in terms of how you can look at your books from the standpoint of that reporting output and use that information to do a monthly, quarterly, and certainly at the very least, hopefully an annual review of everything that you have available to you in terms of the financial information and what it tells you about the financial position and health of your company. Come along with me, let's see what this looks like. Reports are the final frontier in Xero and any accounting software for that matter. We spend all this time and money and effort and energy getting financial transactions entered into our GL system for one basic reason, so we can pull information out of it. For some, it's just about being able to run an income statement and a balance sheet and filing a tax return. For others, and the ones that I prefer to work with, frankly, we hope that we can actually impress upon them the importance of using the reporting area of a product like Xero so that we can pull important intelligence out of the financial information and use that information to make important decisions about the company, how to grow the company, how to increase profitability, how to become more efficient, all those sorts of things that as a bookkeeping and accounting professional, we're in a perfect position to help our clients to do. And we're talking about how to add more value to the services that we offer, especially given the nature of the changes that are taking place with respect to this cloud accounting era, which is what Xero, of course, is at the heart of. Right? So the reporting area is critically important for you to learn, and that's why I wanted to make it the final lesson for this course, is because first I needed to show you how to get all the stuff entered, right? We looked at that between bank feeds, the revenue, and the expense cycle, and in the expense cycle we looked at how to get stuff on the balance sheet too in terms of the fixed assets. So now we want to take a look at the reports. How do we get this information out? For that matter, how do we review the books, right? Because that's what I like to do for my clients. That's where I feel that we can add tremendous value to our clients is by providing them with a periodic review of the books. It could be monthly, could be quarterly, could be semi-annually. At the very least, it has to be at least once a year near the end of the year. We look with all of our clients at what the books look like somewhere in the beginning to the middle of November so that we can take a look at the year so far, project what's going to happen between then and the rest of the year, and based on that, work with the client and their tax prep professional at making sure that we take advantage of any opportunities that we still have time to take advantage of before the end of the year, before it's too late, so that we can do the right tax planning and other kinds of planning that we might need to do. So it's critically important to do a review of the books periodically, hopefully more often than not, and the reporting area is how we're going to do that. So the first thing we do is we run a balance sheet. I'm going to click on balance sheet. Balance sheet is in the position reports, right? Because the balance sheet gives you the financial position of the company as of a given moment in time. In this particular case, it's looking at the current month, the month I happen to be recording this in, which is March of 2015. And as you can see, I've got a pretty simple balance sheet for a pretty simple company here. So the first thing we always want to do is make sure that the checking account is reconciled properly, and we're going to want to get the statements from the bank at this point to compare with the reconciled balances within Xero so that we can make sure that we're getting accurate information here, that the accounts are actually properly reconciled. So I'm going to go up here to my tab, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm actually going to just drag it back. This is just my personal preference in terms of how I work. And let's bring up the All Reports area in this tab. This way I have access to that resident here. I don't have to keep bouncing around, and I can keep my balance sheet open. And so now what we want to do is let's go under Cash Reports. We have the Bank Reconciliation Summary, the Cash Summary, and the Bank Summary. So notice that the Cash Summary is starred, right? And notice there are a bunch of other reports that are starred. That means those reports are going to show up here in this drop-down. So let's run the Cash Summary. Since somebody starred it, they must have felt it was an important report for us to be able to take a look at, right? And it is. The Cash Summary is, as of this point, the closest thing that Xero has to kind of a statement of cash flows. It shows you cash flow. It's not a statement of cash flows. It doesn't look at balance sheet accounts. It looks at your income and your expenses and kind of shows you what your inflows and outflows were based on that, your net cash movement. so that we can see opening balance plus the net cash movement gets us to our closing balance for the account. So this is a good report, but it's not going to tell us if we're reconciled properly. So let's go back. If we run the bank reconciliation summary, we can get a gauge on what Xero thinks the ending balances are. And of course we have to tell it which account we're using. And let's go back to what theoretically might have been the last closed month, so February 28, 2015. I'll update it. And it's going to show me that the reconciled balance in Xero is 637108. The statement balance is 637108. So this is what Xero is assuming, and according to this, we're reconciled perfectly, but I would still get my February 28th bank statement from the bank and make sure that it also has the same ending balance. It probably will, because this information is coming from the bank feeds and then the other activity that you're posting in Xero and what you've reconciled and so on. So it should be accurate, but the only way you'll know for absolute sure, with absolute certainty, is by comparing with the third-party document, which is what you get from the bank when you download a PDF of your bank statement for that month. And then over here we can look at the bank statement tab. And again, this kind of shows us what the bank statement should theoretically look like with the detail in it, right? Beginning balance, all the detail, and the ending balance that we arrive at the end of the month. So also could be a good way to just verify that everything looks as it should. So now let's go back to the All Reports area from here, back to the balance sheet. So that's how you confirm that the bank account is reconciled, and that gives you a fair amount of assurance if it is reconciled correctly to the ending balance, and you dig into some of the details and you don't see anything funny looking. It gives you a reasonable amount of insurance that somebody's taking good care of these books. And as I said at the top of the course in the first lesson, the bank balance, the bank feeds are where 90% or perhaps even more of your business is run. It's all through the bank account. Everything's eventually going to affect the bank account in some way, shape, or form, with very few exceptions, if any. So it's important to confirm that. So now that we know that the bank account is being reconciled, we know that that we're taking into account everything that went through the bank. Right, we know that we've got that much down, but it doesn't mean that the books are perfect by any means. There's still more review to do. So we want to look at the accounts receivable. Let's go to the reports and let's see what we can run for accounts receivable. Under position reports, aged receivables. Let's click on that. And we're trying to compare with 925808. That's what the balance sheet says our balance is. And remember, we're looking at March 2015 with a previous year comparison and one period comparison, right? So we're looking at a year and we're comparing it to one period. So we're looking at the previous year. So when I run my aged receivables, we're not so much comparing to the prior year in this case, but this is a nice detailed report that shows me by customer what we're looking at here. We do want to change this. Month name is fine, and invoice date is fine. So I misspoke. I don't mean we want to change this. We want to verify that this is giving us the right information, right? So we want this through March of 2015. There we go. And I'll just click update to make sure I didn't mess myself up there. So we look at the age receivables. We see we've got 925808 there. We see we've got 925808 here. Everything looks good, at least as far as the fact that we're comparing apples with apples. Now let's take a deeper look and see what's in here. Now this is why I like to invite the client in to participate in this process, because I can get right in here and I can look at something like a City Limousines and say, hey client, do you know that you've got receivables that are out there for City Limousines that are going back quite a few months? But let's say I can't get the client to participate. The client's busy, doesn't want to be bothered. I can go in here and click on City Limousines here, and I can choose Add Footnote. I can also go right out to the amount out here and add a footnote. And I can say, why so old, right? And there may be a perfectly good explanation, but the point is I'm doing the review, and I'm making it a point to highlight these things that would concern me so that the client can review them and address them and explain them to me. And then we can publish that report. Right? Remember how in old accounting software we used to have to export to Excel and email back and forth 50 times until we figured out what was going on and what the final answer was, and then later on when you can't remember what they said, you have to go dig through your files and find that report and that email that they sent back to you. All that's gone, right? Because we're in Xero, which is beautiful cloud accounting software, which means we're in a collaborative environment, so we can invite the client in and have the conversation right around the context of the specific thing that we need to address. In this case, an old receivable that we want to get answers on. So I can write a little report footer text when I publish this. or I can leave it alone. I can, of course, change the titles and all that kind of stuff, and then click Publish. And then I could say to the client, hey, go log in and do me a favor and look at these published reports, right? And notice I'd done this once already in a couple of other iterations of recording this video. So, and notice also that I can export these in various formats, PDF obviously, Excel for sure, but I love the fact that you can do it in Google Docs, because what did I say a minute ago? That we're in collaborative accounting cloud-based software, and Google Sheets is a collaborative spreadsheet software that you can easily use and share with clients too. So it makes sense, and I think it's very smart that Xero has included this as an option for exporting our reports, because I would rather do that than have to email a spreadsheet back and forth. I just share it with the client, say, come in here and look. So if I feel the need to get it in a spreadsheet, I can. But like I said, the fact that we can footnote things right here in the reports and then publish them to be looked at later makes so much sense, so that I can just have the client come in and deal with it straight up in here. So that's how we might analyze receivables, and that's how we'll get the feedback. If I can't get the client directly involved in the process live when I'm doing it, then this is the next best thing. I can publish reports with footnotes and have them review it and get back to me. Now let's go back to all reports. Let's go back to the balance sheet. The fixed assets I would look at, and this is, remember, not just about seeing what's here, it's about thinking in terms of what's not here. So I've got fixed assets. First of all, it's weird that I have negative fixed assets here, but also it's weird that I don't have any accumulated depreciation in here. So let's go to the big one first. We'll click on office equipment, and we click on the number, and that gets us into the transaction detail that shows me everything that makes up that number. And now it makes sense because I have an opening balance going into the period of 0, which means that's why there's no accumulated depreciation, because I never had these assets before on the books. Let's go confirm that that's true for the others. So on the others, I look at the exercise equipment. Now this I know, it's something I actually posted in another video that I was doing on this demo company. So it's equipment that again was posted in the current period, in this very month. We'll back up one more time, and then we'll check out why do we have a negative fixed asset in the form of computer equipment. Let's see. So here we have a bill. It's called an invoice here, but when you click on it, you'll see it's actually a bill that we received from a supplier. Or click on the description. Clicking on the transaction type didn't seem to do anything. So when I click on here, sure enough, this is a bill received from the supplier, and it's booked to computer equipment. So that part's pretty straightforward. We bought $1,739 worth of computer equipment there, $1,900 with tax and everything. And then over here we have an adjustment, it looks like, and it says coded incorrectly office equipment. So this is some kind of an adjustment that caused this account to go negative. But again, I would be asking the client the question. I would want to add a footnote to this and basically type it out and say, hey, why do we have more in money that we're taking out of this account than putting in? In other words, if we coded stuff incorrectly, where is the initial stuff that adds up to this? It should be at least equal to this amount, if not more than. So that's definitely a question I'd be asking. Again, we can create the footnote, publish it, and let the client get back to us on it. Back up here, you'll see the link back to balance sheet. This is definitely useful when you've been drilling around and digging into things and you want to get right back to the balance sheet. Clicking back on your browser button isn't always going to do that. So that's how we might review fixed assets. I would also certainly look at a copy of the last tax return that was filed. And in a case like this, I'd be looking to confirm that there are, in fact, no fixed assets on that tax return. If there are, that's a new kind of problem, because that means that there's stuff that should be on here that isn't. And I'd be asking those questions. Liability is going to be pretty straightforward, based on what you've already seen in terms of how to review this kind of stuff. Is we're going to go back to our reports, and instead of looking at the aged receivables, I'm going to look at my aged payables. That's pretty clear and straightforward. I see something like historical adjustment. That looks weird to me. I'm certainly going to click on that amount and find out what's going on there. And when I do, sure enough, it's an opening balance of some kind. But again, this is a question I'd be asking my client. What is this opening balance? It's in the liabilities, right? Opening balance, I would think, would be what I'd see on the equity side, maybe if I transferred an amount onto the books from somewhere else. But opening balance in a historical adjustment as a liability doesn't really tell me much. I would certainly want to find out what's really going on here and probably rename the account accordingly. So again, I can footnote here and say, hey, what's up with the name of this account? What is this really? Do we actually owe $4,130 to somebody? If so, we should rename the account accordingly. So that's how you could go through the balance sheet of the company. And once that's done, then the next part is going to be to review the income statement. Now, the balance sheet and the related reports, like the aged payables and receivables, were position reports because we're looking at the financial position of the company. How do we look at a particular moment in time? The income statement and reports that are related to that are under performance reports because that refers to how did our company perform over a period of time. The income statement is like a motion picture. The balance sheet's more like a snapshot, right? So I'm going to run the income statement, and we're going to start reviewing that. And then over here, I'm going to get us back into the All Reports area and move those back around. So now we're running the income statement. The default view is the current and previous 3 months. So I'm going to go to compare periods, and I want to be consistent with how I was looking at the balance sheet. So a 12-month period with one previous period in there. And we'll click Update. Get our report. So we're going to go through the income statement, and now the same thing applies. We just want to kind of confirm these amounts, and here on the balance sheet we were really trying to confirm mostly existence, right? Do these things really exist? Are these balances accurate? Now that we've confirmed that, it's fairly certain that everything is pretty accurate in terms of the total numbers and what's on the books, and the fact that there's nothing on the books that shouldn't be and nothing missing from the books that should be. Now it's more a question of classification, right? Are things classified correctly? That's kind of what we're looking at here when we review the income statement. So I've got my sales, $30,709.31. What am I going to look at to confirm the sales and make sense out of it? I don't want to click into the number. Honestly, of course you can, but it's just going to give me a long list of transactions that isn't going to be terribly meaningful to me. What's a lot more meaningful is if I come over here under performance reports also, just like the income statement's in, and I look at income by contact. Because now this is going to show me in a more organized way what my income looks like. And of course we need to make sure that this information up here is accurate. So I need a 12-month period with one previous. And now the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm comparing apples with apples. I want to see my sales total here is $30,744.31. That's not what we had on the income statement. The income statement is $30,709.31. I took the time ahead of time and I showed you that we've got a $35 difference here. So $35, where could that be coming from, right? This is exactly why we do this kind of review. I want to find anomalies like this and research them to make sure I don't have a problem. Interestingly enough, we have a total here for one particular contact, right? Notice these are contacts for $35. So this may very well be the culprit because if I take away $35 from this, I'm at my correct total. So let's go and click on the $35. And I see I've got cash received. So this is cash received. It's not an invoice. That could be one explanation. It could be that the income by contact report is only designed to show income that's driven through an actual invoice, right? I don't know. I'd actually have to ask my friends at Xero about that to be certain. But let's click on cash received to get into the actual transaction. And let's see, look what else is going on. It's booked to an account called dues and subscriptions, which is not income. So that certainly could be the other explanation why this $35 does not get included in my income statement in the sales account because it's not going there. It's going as an offset to an expense account, to my dues and subscriptions. And then there's this description here, long-term subscriber discount refund on sub. I don't really know what that means necessarily, so what I might be inclined to do is back up on my browser, and you can probably already figure out what I'm going to do, right? We're going to back up one more time to get back to the aging. Or not the aging, I'm sorry. I'm back on the balance sheet. Back to this report, and what I might do is add a footnote. Right? Add a footnote and ask the client for an explanation. So I love the footnote feature of the reports in Xero. It's really good. And now let's back up one more time. And see, and this is why you don't use the back on the browser. You just want to go run the income statement. And interestingly enough, from that account, there was no option to go back because I didn't drill into details through an amount like I had before. So we'll go back to compare periods. 12 months, one period to compare. Update. So now you've seen how we can go through a sales account. The last piece is certainly cost of goods sold and then of course the expenses. So how are we going to review these expenses? How are we going to get at making sure that things are classified correctly? Obviously I can start by clicking into any of these numbers and seeing. So looking at the advertising account, we'll wait for Xero to catch up with us. And then you'll see in a second, that we have just a few transactions in the advertising account that make it up. Once we get into the advertising account, sure enough, you can see there's only 3 entries here. So pretty easy to figure out what's in here, and for that matter, eyeball it and decide if these transactions belong here. And this is another situation where we really need the client's direct input, because I don't know if Hoyt Productions really should go to advertising. Maybe it should go somewhere else. Smart Agency sounds like it's an advertising agency, so that certainly makes sense. But even then, I don't know for sure, right? So again, you really need client's direct input. So as a matter of best practices and from a practice management standpoint, I can't stress enough how much more useful it is if you can get your client to get directly involved in this process with you, have them log in remotely and go through this with them looking, so that you can go through it and guide them, but then ask the questions that only they would have the answers to, get that direct and immediate feedback, and either make notes about what to correct later or do it right there and then. So looking at this, I can get a quick gauge on what's in this account. But what if there were a lot of transactions in here? There's one area that I need to show you, and let's go back to the All Reports area. That's going to help with that. Because when there's a lot of transactions, looking at a report like this isn't going to be that helpful. I really want to be able to group it somehow based on the name that's associated with the transaction. So 2 things actually before I go into the area that I want to show you. First, there's expenses by contact, which is another report you should review account by account probably. Because this, instead of looking at it by account, is looking at it by vendor, or by name, let's say, by contact name. So I'm going to update my parameters up at the top so that it's consistent with what we've been looking at. And sure enough, I can come down here and we'll see Smart Agency, for example. Over here with $4,500, I can click on the amount. And when I get in there, I see these 2 transactions, but even from here, it's not necessarily clear where these amounts are posted to. Now, when it's only 2, again, I can click on the amount, and I can see very quickly from there which account this invoice was posted to. I actually clicked on the invoice, and that gets me in, and I can see that it's advertising. But again, if there were 30, 40, 50 transactions in here, that's not going to be a practical way to review it. So let's go back. Over here, notice we do have back to expenses by contact, so I can certainly click there. Get back to my original report. And so again, you can go through this and you can use this as another way of reviewing the books to make sure things are classified correctly. But when it comes to classification, it means knowing what account it went to. So now if we go back to the All Reports area, there's something I need to show you. Xero has a new reports area. Notice as I'm recording this, this notification is coming up saying we're improving reporting. Over the coming months, we'll be adding new reports for you to use. If you've been using Xero already, then you might have noticed this. If not, I'm going to want to direct your attention to the new reports area of Xero. And you'll find that by simply clicking on reports, and you'll see new reports as one of the options there. This is where you'll go to find the infrastructure that allows you to better customize what the output of the report is. You'll be able to establish different filters based on accounts, and also, and especially, I want to point out that you can use your tracking codes here to customize your reports and filter things based on those tracking codes. This is where Xero's reporting area gets really powerful in terms of you being able to get very specific about what you produce in a report in Xero. Try out the new reports. You'll also see that in here under reports if you go to new reports, right? So that's in here. Both take you to the same place. Here is a dialog where you're going to see in a second you have a lot more flexibility in terms of how to chisel a report down to what you're looking at. In new reports, again, I can go to account transactions. This is actually one of my kind of favorites. Right? We got balance sheet, income statement, statement of owner's equity. I'm going to go right into report settings here just so you can see everything now. So now if I wanted to see what's in the advertising account, come in here, type advertising, start typing it, it comes up. So I filter it by that, and you can multiple select accounts. So I can go in here now and I can say, hey, you know what? I also want, cost of goods sold, whatever I might want to do. The date range, let's say, is 4/1/14 through 3/31/15. Accrual or cash. How are we grouping things? So I can choose to group by account, but I can have no grouping, so it's just the total. I can group by account code, account type, and that would be useless to me because I've got it filtered for a single account. Right? I can group by the net amount, the reference, so I can group by any number of different things. So let's just leave it as group by account, And here you have more options you can check off in terms of what you see. And then let's click Update and see what this looks like. So now over here in this report, notice the description is where I actually have the names that are being paid, and I can click on this to sort it by description. So that certainly helps me get a lot of the way there in terms of being able to quickly scan this and determine, especially if I had a lot of payees in here, do all these people belong here? Or is it possible that somebody who is paid and booked to advertising really should have been booked somewhere else, right? And again, I can save it as a draft, publish it, or save it as a template, right? So then I can access that template. If I had a lot of changes to settings that I don't want to have to remember how to do again, I'd save it as a template. Again, I can insert a text block or a footer on a report like this. So really, really nice to have this kind of flexibility on the reports. As always, I'm going to encourage you to, on your own, go through all this stuff and play around with it and learn what it can do. So again, we have a lot of the standard reports coming in here that we've already looked at. Our age payables, our age receivables, they're going to come in here. So let's look at age receivables detail real quick. This goes back to the balance sheet review. But nice looking report, and here it groups it by, this is receivable, so this is by customer, of course. And again, I can go into my report settings and I can change things around all day long. So really, really nice area. There's one other thing I want to show you before I wrap up this lesson, and with that, the entire course. So we're talking again about how we're reviewing expense accounts. And let's say that I really want to be able to quickly get a gauge on each of these expense accounts and who's inside them as far as how things were posted. One thing you can do, and this is where I become a very big fan of Microsoft Excel, and why I'm sure they've made it a point to include the option to export to Excel or Google Sheets, is at a certain point you're going to want to go beyond what any accounting software is capable of doing reporting wise, and actually take it further by creating your own reports. And that's where the Excel exports can really come in. So I want to show you a report I sort of discovered in doing my research and trying to figure out how I best want to be able to review my clients' books in Xero, and what I can do there. What are my choices? So let's go to all reports for a minute. I'm going to close the other tab. Over here under detail reports, you have all your transaction detail. So let's say I run this detailed account transactions. I love doing this stuff, what you're about to see. So again, we want to mind our parameters. So let's say this is 4/1/14 through the end of March of this year, because that's kind of everything we've been looking at so far. I'm going to update my date range, and as you can see, it's kind of showing me everything. It's going to show me all transactions. We're sorted by account code. So let's say I want to change that to account name. Not that it matters. And you'll see why it doesn't really matter that much in just a second. So, but notice what I've got. I've got a report that has everything. It's got the account code, the account name, right, the date, the type of transaction, and then the transaction column is really where it shows you, who, the name of who was involved in the transaction, who was paid, or who we received the money from if it was income. And then scrolling across, and you can get the wide view here too, by the way. That's been there. That's there the whole time. So if you need to widen up what you're looking at, that's how you do it. And now what I want to do is, and you can look at this on screen, it's great. So notice over here it shows me I'm on page 1 of 6. It's got 134 total items. So I know if I go down here to 200, it's going to show me everything. I'm going to wait for that to update. Scroll down. So now I've got a report that shows me everything. Notice I've got all the different accounts here. So let's go to Export, and let's go into Excel. And even though this is not a course on Excel, we have an Excel course and a Google Sheets course here in schoolofbookkeeping.com. So I'd encourage you to take a look at those so that you can go a little bit deeper with respect to what I'm about to show you. But this is how we can get data out of Xero and get a little crazy on reporting on it. So let's open up my Excel sheet that I just created. And it comes in with this option here saying that I need to enable it. And for this purpose, I'm just going to get rid of my headers here. So I just want them out of the way, kind of. I'm going to highlight the whole sheet, come over here. Actually, never mind that. Let's just come over here and get rid of my total down at the bottom. So I don't need that either. Okay, so we take care of some of that housekeeping. clean up the report a little bit. Let's get these formatted for currency. Save the file as. We want to change the format of the file right away when it's downloaded because it's going to download it in an older Excel format. So we want to get this into a better format, a more current format. So I'm going to save it right back into my downloads, but we're going to save it as Excel, and then we're just going to rename this Demo Company Expenses by Name and Account or something like that. Then, after I did a little cleanup, housekeeping on the numbers here, we're going to go to Insert. We're going to go to Pivot Table. Excel is smart. It figures out the range based on what the table looks like. We click OK. And watch what I can do here. So this really took all of about 15 seconds in reality in terms of just exporting the report, doing a little bit of cleanup, and saving the file. Right? So now let's take the net amount and put it down here in the values. And let us change the value field settings here to a numeric format. All right, so we've got 14,653.14. Okay, now let's take a look and see what makes that up. So this is how I can get at the kind of information that I really want to be able to get at sometimes. So I go in here, and we're going to take the account name and put it in the rows. Right, so that shows me each account and what its total was. And then let's take the transaction, because remember, that's what's got the payee in there. And I do that, and now I can see for each account in one screen, I can see very quickly each account and what names are in there. And of course, I've got a total by each on that. So that's just one example of something you can do really quick. I wanted to show you, because it is so quick, how you can quickly export a transaction detail report out of Xero and then start using features like pivot tables in Excel in order to get at the information if, for whatever reason, what you're trying to get at is not something that's readily or easily available in the standard reports in Xero. And you're going to find this, in any accounting software that you're going to use, is that you're going to reach a point where you're going to want to go further than what the reporting can do. And that's when you go to Excel, because Excel can do more than any accounting software that I've ever used in terms of the reporting area. So that, my friends, is how you use what's in Xero, how you take the information that's been entered into Xero and turn it into financial intelligence that's actionable so that you can make important decisions about what to do with the company going forward. That, my friends, is everything I can tell you for now about reports in Xero. There's actually a lot more we could go into, but what I encourage you to do is go through all these reports in each area, understand the context. Why are these reports called performance reports? Why are they called position reports? I explained that to you a little bit earlier in the lesson. So that's going to be your first quiz question, is send me an email and tell me what the difference is between performance and position reports. And I'll tell you if you're right, and if I have any left, I'll send you an inflatable Xero beach ball. So that's going to be your first quiz question, is what's the difference between performance reports and position reports? My friends, I hope that you learned something and had some fun along the way here. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next course. In designing this course on Xero, I wanted to make sure I hit at a high level all the major areas that one would need to understand everything there is to do to complete the entire bookkeeping cycle in the Xero product. I think I've given you that. We started with the bank feeds, we looked at the revenues, we looked at the expenses and generally spending money, and now we've taken a look at what the reporting area and the ultimate output looks like. The other thing, and I've mentioned this in a few places throughout the course, that I want to stress is the add-ons area of Xero. I really think it's important that you spend time taking a look at this. Xero has done something really well. They focused on one thing, and they focused on doing it really well, which is to be a core GL package. And they've left the infrastructure open for developers to come in and create the add-ons that will complete other pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, that you might have to deal with because of a specific industry that you or your client may be in. It's really important, I think, that you take a look at these so that you can see how Xero, combined with some of these other products, will be able to handle the entire accounting and bookkeeping cycle for your clients. Now, the other thing I want to mention here in closing on this is that as a result of doing a course like this, of course I'm digging deeper into the product and I'm learning things I didn't know before. And I have to say, and be very honest about this, that as a result, I am now even more inclined than I was before to put my own clients into Xero, because I really feel that I can tell you very honestly that this is a product that handles the accounting and bookkeeping process and handles it really well. As always, I hope that you've learned something along the way and also had some fun during this course, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.